7 candles flickered on a chocolate cake. Ethan watched his daughter Lily close her eyes, her small hands pressed together in a silent wish. This was supposed to be their perfect night. Just the two of them celebrating her 7th birthday in a cozy Italian bistro on Hanover Street. The door swung open. A gust of biting Boston wind rushed in. Ethan looked up and felt his chest tighten. His ex-wife, Sarah, stood in the entrance, her fingers intertwined with those of a tall man in a tailored charcoal coat. She had said she couldn't come tonight. Yet, here she was with someone else. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to say thank you. Whether you're listening from Los Angeles, Toronto, Sydney, or somewhere I've never even heard of, it means the world that you're here. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to know. And if this story touches your heart, consider subscribing so you don't miss what comes next. Now, let's get back to Ethan and his daughter's birthday. Ethan had ironed his shirt twice that morning. The first time he left a crease near the collar that bothered him so much he started over. It was a simple blue button-down, the nicest thing in his closet, reserved for parent-teacher conferences and the occasional job interview. Today it would serve a more important purpose. Today his little girl was turning 7. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to smooth down a stubborn cowlick that refused to cooperate. The face staring back at him showed the toll of the past year and a half. Tired eyes, a jaw that clenched too often, hands that were rough and calloused from years of working with timber, but still gentle enough to braid a little girl's hair every morning before school. From down the hall, he heard Lily's alarm clock begin to chime. Ethan had been awake since 5:30, practicing star-shaped pancakes from a video he'd watched the night before. The first 3 attempts looked like lumpy blobs. The 4th finally resembled something celestial. He arranged them on her favorite teal plate, stuck a single candle in the center, and waited outside her bedroom door. When Lily emerged, still rubbing sleep from her eyes, her face transformed into pure joy. "Daddy, you made me star pancakes." She blew out the candle right there in the hallway, squeezing her eyes so tight that little wrinkles formed across her nose. Ethan wondered what she wished for. He hoped it was something within his power to give. New markers, a trip to the aquarium, anything but the one thing he knew she wanted most. Their apartment was small, but full of love. 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor of a brick row house where the radiator clanked loudly in winter, and the neighbors watched Red Sox games too loud on weekends. Ethan had done everything he could to make it feel like home for Lily. He painted her room mint green because she said it was the color of spring. He hung fairy lights around her window so she would never be afraid of the dark. He built her a bookshelf shaped like a cloud, each curve holding her favorite stories. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. The divorce had been finalized a year and a half ago, though the unraveling began long before any papers were signed. It started with a phone call. Sarah's voice shaking on the other end of the line, telling him that her mother had been diagnosed with late-stage cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months, maybe less. Sarah had to go. Her mother lived 500 miles away in Ohio, alone with no one else to care for her. Ethan understood. Of course he understood, but he couldn't follow. His carpentry business depended on contracts in the city, relationships he had spent years building. He was the only one bringing in steady income. If he left, they would lose everything. So Sarah went alone. They tried to make the distance work. Phone calls every night after Lily went to bed. Video chats on weekends where they would prop up their phones and pretend they were having dinner together. For the first few months, they still said, "I love you," before hanging up. They still made plans for when she would come home. But 8 months of separation has a way of wearing people down. Sarah was exhausted from watching her mother fade away, from the endless hospital visits and sleepless nights. Ethan was exhausted from raising Lily alone while keeping his business afloat, from being both father and mother, and somehow never feeling like enough. Slowly, the phone calls grew shorter. The "I love you" became "talk tomorrow." The plans for reunion became vague and distant, pushed further into a future neither of them could see clearly. When Sarah's mother finally passed, something had already died between them too. She moved back to Boston a few weeks later. Ethan remembered the day she came to pick up the rest of her things. They stood in the living room they had once shared, surrounded by boxes and silence. Neither of them shouted. Neither of them cried. They simply looked at each other and acknowledged what they both already knew. "I still love you," Sarah had said quietly. "But I don't know how to be your wife anymore." Ethan had nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He wanted to fight for her. He wanted to beg her to stay, to try again, to remember what they had before everything fell apart. But he saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight she was carrying, and he knew that asking her to stay would only break her further. So he let her go. They agreed on shared custody. Alternate weeks, holidays split evenly. Everything arranged with the precision of two people trying very hard to be civilized. Sarah took a nursing job at General Hospital, working night shifts so she could spend days with Lily during her weeks. Ethan never stopped loving her. He kept this truth locked away in a place he never visited. He didn't speak about it to friends. He didn't let it show during their brief exchanges at the doorstep when they handed Lily back and forth. He trained himself not to notice the way Sarah's hair caught the light, or how her laugh still sounded exactly the same as it did on their first date. Loving her from a distance had become another kind of work. Invisible, exhausting, necessary. On the morning of Lily's birthday, Ethan checked his phone while she was getting dressed. A message from Sarah waited on the screen. "I can't make it to dinner tonight. I need to prepare something important. I'm sorry. Kiss Lily for me." Something important. Ethan read the words 3 times, searching for meaning between the lines. He wanted to ask what was more important than their daughter's birthday. He wanted to call her and hear the explanation in her voice. But their relationship had become a careful dance of boundaries, and he had learned not to cross the invisible lines. He typed back a simple response. "I'll tell her. Hope everything goes well." Then he put the phone away and focused on making the day special enough for both of them. That afternoon, while Lily was watching cartoons, Ethan went to tidy her room. He picked up scattered markers and straightened the blankets on her bed. As he fluffed her pillow, a folded piece of paper slipped out from underneath. It was a brochure for the Beacon Hill Young Artists Academy. Ethan recognized it immediately. Lily had mentioned this place months ago, her eyes shining with that particular light children get when they discover something that speaks to their soul. "They teach you how to paint like real artists, Daddy, with real canvases and everything. Maybe one day I can go there." He had changed the subject then, pretending to be distracted by something on the stove. He didn't know how to tell her that one day might never come. The tuition was listed on the back of the brochure. $3,000 per year, more than he could spare after rent, utilities, groceries, and the endless small expenses that came with raising a child alone. Ethan stared at the brochure for a long moment. Then he folded it carefully and slid it back under her pillow, exactly where she had hidden it. Some dreams had to wait. That evening, he helped Lily into her favorite velvet dress, the one with tiny daisies embroidered along the hem. She twirled in front of the mirror, watching the skirt spin around her legs. "Do I look pretty, Daddy?" "You look beautiful, baby girl. The most beautiful 7-year-old in the whole world." She beamed at him, And for a moment, Ethan forgot about all the things he couldn't give her. In that smile, in that simple joy, everything felt like enough. The drive to the restaurant took 15 minutes. Ethan had chosen this place deliberately. It was a small Italian spot on Cedar Avenue, nothing fancy, with red checkered tablecloths and candles stuffed into old wine bottles. The kind of place where the waitress called everyone honey, and the bread baskets were always overflowing. It was also the place where he had proposed to Sarah 8 years ago. He didn't know why he kept coming back here. Maybe he was punishing himself. Maybe he was holding on to something that should have been let go long ago. Or maybe this restaurant with all its memories was the only place that still felt like the family they used to be. Lily slid into the corner booth, her legs swinging freely because her feet couldn't reach the floor. She studied the menu with intense concentration, even though Ethan knew she would order the same thing she always did. "Daddy, do you think Mommy is thinking about me right now?" The question came out of nowhere, soft and tentative. Ethan reached across the table and covered her small hand with his. "I know she is, sweetheart. Mommy always thinks about you. Even when she can't be here, you're always in her heart." Lily nodded slowly, accepting this answer, the way children accept things they don't fully understand but choose to believe anyway. The waitress brought out the cake Ethan had ordered in advance, chocolate with lavender icing, just the way Lily liked it. 7 candles arranged in a careful circle. The staff gathered around the table, and the familiar melody of Happy Birthday filled the small restaurant. Ethan watched his daughter's face glow in the candlelight. She looked so much like her mother in that moment. The same wide eyes, the same gentle curve of her smile, the same way she pressed her hands together when she was about to make a wish. Lily closed her eyes. The restaurant door swung open. A gust of cold air cut through the warmth. Ethan turned instinctively, and everything inside him went still. Sarah stood in the doorway. She was wearing the emerald dress he had always loved, the one that made her eyes look like sea glass. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked beautiful. She looked nervous. And she was not alone. A man stood beside her, tall and polished in a navy suit. His hand rested on the small of her back with an ease that spoke of familiarity. He leaned close to whisper something in her ear, and Sarah nodded, a small smile crossing her lips. Ethan couldn't breathe. She said she had something important to do. She said she couldn't come tonight. And yet, here she was, walking into their restaurant with another man's hand on her body like it belonged there. Lily's eyes flew open. "Mommy!" The word broke the spell. Sarah's gaze snapped to the corner booth, and for one unguarded second, Ethan saw something flicker across her face. Surprise. Guilt. The panic of someone caught in a moment they weren't ready to explain. She recovered quickly, her expression smoothing into a bright smile as she walked toward the table. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. I wanted to surprise you." But Ethan barely heard her. His eyes were fixed on the man following behind her. The silver watch on his wrist, the confident way he moved, the way he looked at Sarah like she was something precious. Lily was smiling now, confused but happy to see her mother. She didn't notice her father's white-knuckled grip on the edge of the table. She didn't see the way his jaw had tightened or how he was forcing every muscle in his face to remain neutral. She said she couldn't come because of something important. And now Ethan understood. This man was the important thing. Everything he had been holding together for the past year and a half, all the careful walls he had built around his heart, began to crack. But he didn't let it show. He would not ruin his daughter's birthday. He would not let Lily see him break. So Ethan smiled, even as something inside him shattered into pieces too small to ever put back together. Ethan stood up from the booth. His legs felt unsteady beneath him, but he forced himself to move with calm precision. He nodded once at Sarah, a gesture so controlled it barely qualified as acknowledgement, then turned his attention to the man beside her. "Ethan," he said, extending his hand. His voice came out flat, professional, the voice he used with difficult clients. The man shook it firmly. "Adrian, it's nice to finally meet you. Sarah has told me a lot about you." Finally. The word lodged itself in Ethan's chest like a splinter. How long had this been going on? How many conversations had Sarah and this man shared about him, about their family, about things that should have remained private? "Has she?" Ethan replied. It wasn't a question. Sarah stepped forward quickly, her smile too bright, her movements too eager. She kissed Lily on the forehead and settled into the booth beside her daughter, pulling her close. "I'm so sorry I'm late, baby. I had a surprise to prepare, and it took longer than I expected." Lily wrapped her arms around her mother's neck. "I knew you would come, Mommy. I knew it." Ethan watched them embrace, his daughter's face buried in Sarah's shoulder, and felt something twist inside him. He should be happy that Lily was happy. He should be grateful that Sarah had shown up after all. Instead, all he could see was Adrian standing at the edge of the table, watching this intimate family moment like he belonged there. "I'm going to step outside for a minute," Ethan said. "I need some air." He didn't wait for a response. He walked past the other diners, past the waitress carrying a tray of pasta, past the chalkboard menu he had memorized years ago. The door swung shut behind him, and the cold night air hit his face like a slap. Ethan leaned against the brick wall of the restaurant, his breath coming out in visible puffs. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to his friend Caleb. Sarah showed up with some guy. "I don't know what to do." The response came 30 seconds later. "What do you mean, some guy? Like a boyfriend?" Ethan stared at the screen. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard, but he didn't know how to answer. He didn't know anything anymore. Inside the restaurant, Sarah noticed the empty space where Ethan had been sitting. She watched the door swing closed behind him and felt her stomach tighten with guilt. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. She had planned everything so carefully. The timing, the explanation, the reveal. But seeing Ethan's face when he looked at Adrian, seeing the way his jaw locked and his eyes went cold, she realized she had made a terrible mistake. Adrian touched her shoulder gently. "He thinks we're together." Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. "You need to explain," Adrian continued, "before this gets worse." "I know, I didn't expect him to be so hurt." Sarah looked at her daughter, who was now happily examining the lavender icing on her birthday cake, oblivious to the tension surrounding her. "I thought I was over feeling guilty," Sarah whispered. "I thought we had both moved on." Adrian didn't respond. He simply stood beside her the way he had stood beside her for the past 15 years of their friendship, through every heartbreak and triumph, and ordinary Tuesday in between. Outside, Ethan was still staring at his phone when the restaurant door opened. He looked up, expecting Sarah. Instead, it was Adrian. The two men regarded each other in the amber glow of the streetlight. "Mind if I join you?" Adrian asked. Ethan shrugged. He didn't have the energy to refuse. Adrian leaned against the wall a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. Up close, Ethan noticed details he had missed before. The fine lines around Adrian's eyes, the slight gray at his temples, the way he held himself with a quiet confidence that wasn't arrogance, just self-assurance. "Sarah didn't tell you I was coming," Adrian said. "It wasn't a question." "No, that was my fault. I told her to keep it a surprise. I thought—" He shook his head. "I didn't think about how it would look." Ethan crossed his arms over his chest. "How long have you two been together?" The question came out sharper than he intended. He could hear the jealousy in his own voice, and he hated himself for it. He had no right to be jealous. Sarah wasn't his wife anymore. She was free to be with whoever she wanted. But knowing that didn't stop the feeling from burning in his chest. Adrian turned to look at him directly. There was something in his expression that Ethan couldn't read. Sympathy, maybe, or understanding. "We're not together," Adrian said quietly. "Not in the way you're thinking, and honestly, Sarah's not exactly my type." Ethan frowned, confused. Adrian gave a small, knowing smile. "My husband would probably object if I started dating women at this point. We've been married for 12 years. The words took a moment to register. Ethan blinked. "Your husband?" "His name is Patrick. He wanted to come tonight, actually, but someone had to stay home with our dog. She's recovering from surgery." Adrian pulled out his phone and showed Ethan a photo of himself with another man, both of them smiling, a golden retriever between them. "Sarah's been my best friend since college, 20 years now. I was there when she got her first nursing job. I was there when she married you. I was there when her mother died, and she called me at 3:00 in the morning because she couldn't stop crying." Ethan absorbed this information slowly. The tight knot in his chest began to loosen, but it was replaced by something else. Confusion, embarrassment, and underneath it all, a flicker of relief so profound it almost made him dizzy. "She never told me you were close," Ethan said. "She didn't tell you a lot of things." Adrian's voice was gentle, not accusatory. Not because she was hiding them, because she didn't know how to talk about the hard stuff, especially not with you. "What's that supposed to mean?" Adrian looked up at the sky where a few stars were visible through the haze of city lights. "When Sarah moved back after her mother passed, she was in a bad place. Really bad. There were nights when I was genuinely afraid for her. She felt like she had failed at everything. Failed to save her mother. Failed to save her marriage. Failed to be the kind of person you and Lily deserved." Ethan felt something cold settle in his stomach. "I didn't know it was that serious." "She didn't want you to know. She thought you had enough to deal with. Raising Lily alone, running your business. She didn't want to add her broken pieces to your plate." They stood in silence for a moment. Inside the restaurant, Ethan could hear the muffled sounds of other diners laughing, glasses clinking, life continuing as normal. "Why are you telling me this?" Ethan finally asked. Adrian turned back to face him. "Because I've watched Sarah carry this weight for 2 years. And I've watched her never stop loving you. Even when she convinced herself she had to let you go. Tonight was supposed to be a good thing. She's been planning it for months. But she's terrible at explaining her feelings, and I'm even worse at reading a room." Before Ethan could respond, the restaurant door burst open. Sarah stepped outside, her face pale. "Ethan, something's wrong with Lily." All other thoughts vanished. Ethan pushed past Adrian and rushed back inside, his heart pounding. Lily was standing by the table, her face streaked with tears. When she saw her father, she ran toward him and threw her arms around his legs, sobbing. "Baby, what happened? What's wrong?" The words came out between hiccups and gasps. I heard Mommy talking. She said she's going to move away. She's leaving. She's leaving and never coming back." Ethan knelt down so he was at eye level with his daughter. Her small body was shaking, her breaths coming in ragged bursts. "Lily, sweetheart, calm down. Tell me exactly what you heard." Sarah had followed them inside. She stood frozen a few feet away, her hand over her mouth. "I heard her on the phone," Lily cried. "She said everything is ready. She said after tonight she's going to move. She's going away, Daddy. She's going to leave us just like before." Ethan looked up at Sarah. Her eyes were red, threatening to spill over. "That's not... Lily, baby, that's not what I meant." But Lily wasn't listening. She buried her face in Ethan's chest, her small fingers clutching his shirt so hard it hurt. "I don't want Mommy to go. I don't want her to leave again. It's all my fault. It's because of my birthday. I made everyone sad." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. His 7-year-old daughter on her birthday believing that she was the cause of her parents' pain. He held her tighter, one hand cradling the back of her head. "No, baby, no, none of this is your fault. Do you hear me? None of it." Sarah stepped forward and knelt beside them both. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice was steady. "Lily, look at me." Slowly, reluctantly, Lily lifted her head. Her eyes were red and swollen, her cheeks wet. "I'm not leaving you," Sarah said. "I would never leave you. When I said I was moving, I meant I was moving my work schedule. I'm going to switch from night shifts to day shifts so I can spend more time with you, so I can take you to school and pick you up and be there when you need me." Lily stared at her mother, confusion and hope warring on her small face. "You're not going away?" "No, baby, I'm staying right here. I will always stay right here." The little girl looked at her father, seeking confirmation. Ethan nodded. "Mommy's not going anywhere, sweetheart. She loves you more than anything in the world." Lily's lower lip trembled. Then she reached out and grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her mother into the embrace. For a moment, the three of them stayed like that, huddled together on the floor of a small Italian bistro, while other diners pretended not to watch. Ethan could feel Sarah's shoulder pressed against his. He could smell her shampoo, the same vanilla scent she had used for years. Her fingers brushed against his arm as she held their daughter, and the touch sent electricity through his skin. He had spent 1.5 years training himself not to feel this way. It took less than a minute to undo all of it. When Lily's sobs finally quieted, Sarah pulled back and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "There's something else I need to tell you both," she said. "Something I should have explained from the beginning." She reached into her purse and pulled out a white envelope. "Lily, do you remember the art center you told me about? The one where they teach children to paint on real canvases?" Lily's eyes widened. She nodded slowly. Sarah placed the envelope in her daughter's hands. "Open it." Lily's fingers fumbled with the seal. Inside was a folded letter and a glossy brochure that Ethan recognized immediately. The Beacon Hill Young Artists Academy, the same brochure he had found under her pillow that afternoon. "I've been working extra shifts for 6 months," Sarah said. "Every night shift, every holiday I could pick up. I saved enough for a full year of tuition. And Adrian—" She looked over her shoulder at the man who had quietly returned and was now standing by the door. "Adrian runs the art center. He agreed to put you in their advanced program even though you're younger than most of the students, because I showed him your drawings, and he said you have real talent." Lily stared at the letter, then at her mother, then at Adrian, then back at the letter. "I get to go to art school? You get to go to art school." The scream of joy that erupted from Lily's lungs was so loud that every head in the restaurant turned. She threw her arms around Sarah's neck, then around Ethan's neck, then ran across the room to hug Adrian's legs, even though she had only met him an hour ago. Ethan stayed on the floor for a moment longer, the pieces finally clicking into place. The mysterious message about something important. The secrecy. The man at Sarah's side. It had never been what he thought. It had never been about replacing him. It had been about Lily. It had always been about Lily. He looked up at Sarah, who was watching their daughter dance around the restaurant in uncontainable joy. "You worked night shifts for 6 months," he said quietly. "All those times you said you were too tired to talk. All those dark circles under your eyes." Sarah met his gaze. "I wanted to give her something she couldn't get any other way, something that would make her believe that dreams can come true. Ethan stood up slowly. His legs still felt unsteady, but for a different reason now. Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped. I could have. You've been doing everything alone for 2 years, Sarah interrupted gently. Taking care of her, providing for her, being everything she needs. I wanted to do something on my own. I wanted to prove that I could still be a good mother, even if I couldn't be a good wife. The words hung between them. Ethan felt the walls he had built, the ones that had held him together for so long, begin to crumble. Across the room, Lily was showing Adrian her star pancake technique, her earlier tears completely forgotten. The waitress was bringing out extra bread, charmed by the little girl's enthusiasm. The restaurant had returned to its normal rhythm, as if the crisis of the past hour had never happened. Sarah stepped closer to Ethan. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't come here to hurt you. I came here to surprise Lily, but I think I ended up hurting you anyway, and I'm sorry. Ethan shook his head. You didn't hurt me. I hurt myself. I saw you with Adrian, and I assumed the worst because... He stopped, searching for words. Because I've been waiting for you to move on. I've been waiting for the day you find someone else, and I have to pretend to be happy about it. And when I thought that day had come, I realized I'm not ready. I don't think I'll ever be ready. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Ethan, I know we're not together anymore. I know I don't have any right to feel this way, but I need you to know that I never stopped. Daddy, Mommy, come look! Lily's voice cut through the moment. She was waving at them from across the room, holding up a piece of paper she had been drawing on with borrowed crayons. Ethan and Sarah exchanged a glance. Whatever had been about to be said dissolved into the air, unfinished. They walked over to their daughter together. Lily proudly displayed her artwork. It was a simple drawing done in crayon on a napkin, 3 figures holding hands. A tall one on the left labeled Daddy in crooked letters. A tall one on the right labeled Mommy, and a smaller one in the middle labeled Me. It's our family, Lily announced. Ethan felt his throat tighten. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Sarah knelt down beside Lily, studying the drawing with serious attention. Is this what you wished for when you blew out your candles? Lily shook her head. No, I can't tell you what I wished for, or it won't come true. She looked at the drawing again, then back at her parents with an expression that seemed far too old for 7 years. But this isn't a wish. This is what's real. Even if you and Daddy don't live together anymore, in my heart, we're still a family, right? Neither Ethan nor Sarah could speak. Lily took their silence as uncertainty. Her small face grew serious. I know you got divorced. I'm not a baby. I understand that you're not married anymore. She pressed the drawing into Ethan's hands. But that doesn't mean we're not a family. I don't need you to get back together. I just need you to not hate each other. Can you do that? Ethan looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at Ethan. A 1.5 years of careful distance. A 1.5 years of polite exchanges and avoided glances and feelings stuffed so deep they had almost suffocated. And now their 7-year-old daughter was asking them for the one thing they had both been too afraid to offer. We don't hate each other, baby, Sarah said softly. We never did. Your mother is right, Ethan added. We could never hate each other. Not when we both love you so much. Lily considered this for a moment. Then she nodded, apparently satisfied. Good. Now can we eat cake? I'm hungry. The tension broke. Sarah laughed, a sound that Ethan hadn't heard in almost 2 years. It was like hearing a song he had forgotten he loved. Yes, Sarah said. Let's eat cake. They returned to the booth together. The chocolate cake sat in the center of the table, its 7 candles now melted stubs in a pool of lavender icing. Lily didn't seem to mind. She climbed into her seat and pulled the cake toward her, already reaching for the knife. "I want the corner piece with the most frosting," she announced. Ethan sat down across from her. Sarah slid into the seat beside their daughter. Adrian remained standing by the edge of the table, watching the scene with a quiet smile. "I should probably go," Adrian said. "This seems like a family moment." Lily looked up sharply. "But you're part of the surprise, Uncle Adrian. You have to stay and eat cake with us." The title came out naturally, as if Lily had already decided that this stranger belonged in her world. Ethan noticed the way Adrian's expression softened at the word uncle. "I don't want to intrude," Adrian said, glancing at Ethan. Ethan surprised himself with his response. "Stay. You came all this way for Lily's birthday. The least we can do is give you some cake." Adrian hesitated for only a moment before pulling up a chair from a nearby table. He sat at the end of the booth, completing the strange new geometry of this evening. Sarah cut the cake into careful slices. She gave Lily the corner piece as promised, then served Ethan, then Adrian, before taking a small slice for herself. The chocolate was rich and sweet, but Ethan barely tasted it. His mind was still processing everything that had happened in the past hour. "So, you run an art center?" Ethan said to Adrian. It wasn't quite an olive branch, but it was something. Adrian nodded. "Started it about 8 years ago with my husband Patrick. Mostly we work with kids who don't have access to traditional art education. Lily's drawings caught my attention the first time Sarah showed them to me. She has a real eye for color. She gets that from her mother." The words came out before Ethan could stop them. Sarah looked up, surprised. Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment the busy restaurant around them faded into background noise. Lily, oblivious to the undercurrents, was happily smearing frosting on her nose. "Daddy, when do I start art school?" Ethan looked at Sarah for the answer. "Next month," Sarah said. "Classes are on Saturday mornings. I'll be the one taking you since I'm switching to day shifts. Can Daddy come too sometimes?" The innocent question hung in the air. Ethan and Sarah both hesitated. "I don't see why not," Sarah finally said. "If Daddy wants to." "I'd like that," Ethan replied quietly. Lily beamed as if she had just received another birthday present. She went back to demolishing her cake, unaware that she had just brokered a small peace treaty between her parents. The waitress came by to refill water glasses. She smiled at the table, clearly charmed by the little girl with frosting on her face. "Is this a birthday party? Happy birthday, sweetheart." "Thank you," Lily said politely. "My mommy gave me art school for my birthday, and my daddy made me star pancakes this morning." "Well, aren't you lucky to have such wonderful parents?" Lily nodded solemnly. "I know." When the waitress left, Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a small cardboard box. "I almost forgot. There's one more thing." She placed the box on the table. It was tied with a lavender ribbon. "What is it?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. "Open it and see." Lily untied the ribbon with eager fingers. Inside the box was a second cake, much smaller than the first. It was clearly homemade, the frosting slightly uneven, decorated with strawberries arranged in the shape of a heart. "I know you like strawberry better than chocolate," Sarah said. "So I made this one myself. I'm not much of a baker, but I wanted to give you something that came from my own hands, not just my wallet." Lily stared at the cake, with an expression that Ethan had never seen before. It was the look of a child who understood, perhaps for the first time, that love could take many different forms. "You made this for me?" "Every bit of it. The frosting took me 3 tries. I hope it tastes okay." Lily threw her arms around Sarah's neck. "I love it, Mommy. I love it so much." Sarah held her daughter close, her vision blurring with tears. She refused to let them fall. Ethan watched them embrace. Something shifted inside him, a loosening of the knot that had been tightening in his chest since the divorce. Sarah was still the woman he had fallen in love with. Still the woman who would work double shifts to give their daughter a dream. Still the woman who would bake a lopsided cake at midnight because she wanted Lily to know she was loved. The divorce hadn't changed any of that. Maybe it was possible to love someone without being married to them. Maybe it was possible to be a family without sharing a home. "We should light the candles," Ethan said. Sarah looked at him. "There are no candles on this one. I forgot to buy them." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box of birthday candles. He had bought extras just in case. "I've got you covered." Their fingers brushed as he handed her the box. Neither of them pulled away. Sarah placed 7 candles on the strawberry cake, and the waitress, who had been hovering nearby, offered to light them. Once again, the staff gathered around the table. Once again, the familiar melody of Happy Birthday filled the restaurant. Lily closed her eyes and made her second wish of the evening. When she blew out the candles, Ethan could have sworn he saw her glance at both her parents before opening her eyes. "What did you wish for this time?" Sarah asked. Lily shook her head firmly. "Can't tell or it won't come true." "Fair enough." Adrian stood up from his chair. "I really should be going now. Early flight tomorrow. Patrick's waiting up for me." Lily scrambled out of the booth and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Thank you for my art school, Uncle Adrian. I'm going to be the best painter in the whole class." Adrian knelt down to her level. "I don't doubt that for a second. I'll see you at orientation next month." "Okay. Patrick might come too. He makes really good cookies." "Okay." He straightened up and shook Ethan's hand again. This time, the gesture felt genuine. "Take care of them," Adrian said quietly. "Both of them." Ethan nodded. He didn't need to ask what Adrian meant. Sarah walked Adrian to the door. They exchanged a few words that Ethan couldn't hear, and then Adrian was gone, disappearing into the cold night outside. Sarah stood at the entrance for a moment, watching him go before turning back to the table. The restaurant was beginning to empty. Other families were gathering their coats and paying their checks. The waitress was clearing tables with practiced efficiency. Ethan looked at his watch. It was almost 9 Augs. Lily should have been in bed an hour ago. "We should get going," he said. "It's way past someone's bedtime." Lily predictably protested. "But I'm not tired. I don't want the party to end." "All good things have to end, sweetheart. That's what makes them special." Sarah began gathering the leftover cake into takeout boxes. Ethan counted out bills for the check. Their movements were coordinated, unconscious, the muscle memory of 2 people who had once shared a life. When everything was packed up, they walked out of the restaurant together. The night air was crisp and cold, carrying the faint smell of approaching winter. Lily held both their hands, swinging between them like she used to do when she was 3 years old. "This was the best birthday ever," she declared. "Yeah." Ethan smiled down at her. "Better than the one where we went to the water park." "Way better, because both of you were here." Ethan felt Sarah's fingers tighten around Lily's hand. They walked in silence to the parking lot where their cars were parked side by side. Lily ran ahead to look at something on the ground. A ladybug, maybe, or an interesting rock. She crouched down to examine it, giving her parents a moment alone. Sarah spoke first. "I'm sorry about tonight, about all of it. I should have told you about Adrian. I should have explained the surprise instead of just showing up." Ethan shook his head. "Don't apologize. You did something incredible for Lily. I'm the one who jumped to conclusions. You had every right to be upset. If I saw you walk in with some woman I'd never met, I probably would have reacted the same way." They stood in the dim glow of the parking lot lights, close enough to touch, but not quite touching. "There's something I started to say earlier," Ethan began, "before Lily interrupted us." Sarah waited. "I never stopped loving you." The words came out quiet but steady. I know that might be strange to hear. I know we're divorced, and we've both been trying to move on, but I can't pretend anymore. This past year and a half, I've been going through the motions, telling myself that the feelings would fade if I just ignored them long enough. They haven't. They won't. Sarah's eyes glistened in the streetlight. I don't know what to do with that information, Ethan continued. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know because life is short, and we spent too much time not talking about the things that mattered. Sarah reached up and touched his face. Her fingers were cold from the night air, but the gesture was warm. I never stopped loving you either, she whispered. That was the hardest part, knowing that I still loved you, but not knowing how to be with you without falling apart. After my mother died, I was so broken, Ethan. I couldn't ask you to carry that weight on top of everything else you were already carrying. You didn't have to carry it alone. I know that now. I didn't know it then. Lily looked up from her examination of the ground. Mommy, Daddy, are you talking about grown-up stuff? They both laughed, the tension breaking into something lighter. Yes, baby, Sarah said. Very boring grown-up stuff. Okay, tell me when you're done. She went back to whatever had captured her attention. Ethan looked at Sarah. So, what do we do now? I don't know. I don't think we can go back to what we were. What if we don't try to go back? What if we try something new? Sarah tilted her head. Like what? Like being a family. Not the way we were before, but the way Lily described. Two people who love each other, who love their daughter, who choose to be kind to each other even when it's hard. That sounds almost like dating. Maybe it is. Maybe we start from scratch. No assumptions, no expectations, just two people trying to figure out if they still fit together. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. A real smile. The one that had made Ethan fall in love with her a decade ago. I think I'd like that. Lily came running back, holding something in her cupped hands. Look, Daddy, look, Mommy, I found a ladybug. They both leaned in to examine the tiny creature crawling across her palm. Its red shell gleamed under the parking lot lights. That's good luck, Ethan said. Did you know that? Ladybugs are good luck. Really? Really? You should make a wish on it. Lily closed her eyes tight, concentrating hard. Then she opened them and gently placed the ladybug on a nearby bush. What did you wish for? Sarah asked. Lily looked at her parents with that same too-old expression she had worn earlier in the restaurant. I don't need to tell you this one because it already came true. She reached out and took both their hands again, pulling them together so that Ethan and Sarah's fingers intertwined above her head. Ethan looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at Ethan. Neither of them let go. The night was cold and the hour was late. But for the first time since the divorce, Ethan felt something he had forgotten was possible. Hope, not the hope of going back to what they had. That was gone. And perhaps it was never meant to last forever. But the hope of something new, something that could grow from the broken pieces of their past into a shape they hadn't imagined yet. A family that didn't live under the same roof but shared the same heart. Come on, Ethan said. Let's get you home before you turn into a pumpkin. Lily giggled. I don't want to be a pumpkin. Then we better hurry. He lifted her into his arms, and she wrapped her legs around his waist, her head resting on his shoulder. Sarah walked beside them to his car, and when he buckled Lily into the back seat, she was already half asleep, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the evening. I'll follow you home, Sarah said. Make sure you get there safe. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That's my line. Maybe it's both our lines now, he smiled. Maybe it is. Sarah got into her car, and Ethan got into his. They pulled out of the parking lot in a small convoy, 2 vehicles carrying 3 people who were learning slowly how to be a family again. In the back seat, Lily murmured in her half-sleep, "Best birthday ever." Ethan looked at her in the rearview mirror. Then he looked at the headlights of Sarah's car, following steadily behind. "Yeah, baby girl," he said softly. It really was. This story teaches us that assumptions are often the enemy of happiness. Ethan's rush to judge the situation caused unnecessary pain, reminding us to communicate openly before jumping to conclusions. Furthermore, it illustrates that a family's bond is not defined by a marriage certificate or a shared address, but by the relentless commitment to love and support one another. Even when a traditional relationship ends, respect and kindness can build a new foundation that is just as strong, ensuring that the children at the center of that love never feel broken by the changes around them.